Thank you.
So it's interesting that it has the inclusion there of witches, right? And it doesn't say anything about the male ones necessarily, but usually
Yeah,
it's kind of it should mean both, because this was a
Yeah.
practice that was not exclusive to women at the time.
Yeah, I have a comment on that as well, but
Yeah.
Except the Witch of Endor,
Well, I mean, yeah, the Witch of Endor.
because reasons.
it's not really a witch. But again, we'll
Because when the
she
king
conjured.
does it, it's not a crime.
yeah, but it's not really
She's
a
a
witch. It doesn't
necromancer.
say it doesn't say
Wait.
Mechashifa. She's
And-
called
A
Yes,
necromancer resurrects the dead.
yeah,
was-
but in the Bible, there are different types of like wizardry.
I've played
or
a lot of
sorcery. So
video
it's
games, and
very-
necromancy is...
Wait, Lilith. Let Tomir finish.
You're right.
Again, in the Bible, there are different types of magic, quote unquote. So you have all these different types, and Mechashifa, I don't think it's similar to what the Witch of Endor was, which is Baalat Ov, which is raising the dead or raising ghosts as well. I'm not really sure.
No.
Maybe when I'll get to I think Deuteronomy expands on this more about these laws. So maybe when I'll get to there, I'll.
We
I'm just
call these
saying-
people today. If we're not talking about raising the dead, if we're talking about consulting the dead, we call them
Yes,
mediums.
yes.
They're a medium between
Mediums.
the dead and the living.
She wasn't
Well,
even
I
a
was
medium.
just-
She straight up the one at Endor
Conjures.
somebody, that being Samuel,
Oh.
from
Yeah.
the grave, and it literally calls
Yes,
him
yes.
Elohim, by the way.
And it says
That's
he
where-
came up as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
his
was he
spirit
was
came up.
He was underground.
Mhm.
And he was supposed to be a
Honestly,
good person.
I'm
Well,
just saying,
Where's
in
your
every
where's your
video game
heaven?
I've played, in every video game I've played, necromancy has been a magic skill. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Right, in our modern context, but yeah, magic in the ancient world was much more. It was a different thing, and it went.
Yeah,
through
there were
certain
different
evolutions.
categories to each thing. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the Jewish view on magic and witches and stuff is interesting because it has this like one verse where it's like you shall not allow a sorceress to live, and then there's, as you say, like stories where it seems magical witches or whatever, and no one seems to get killed in any of these stories. And then you go to like later texts and stuff like the Talmud, where they're like, yeah, our wives are all doing magic, like that's normal. It's such most women do magic, and
But-
that's why it says
Just
Yeah.
so you know, the impact of this verse responsible for lots of innocent people being burned at the stake.
that is true.
And hanged and killed
Even
in various
today-
other ways.
And even today, some of the
In
Christian
Africa.
missionaries have brought this to places where even like albino children are burned because they think they're witches.
And it's
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wonder how the
fascinating
panel. I wonder how the panel deals with like the Christians who say that they don't believe in magic, yet they believe in blessings and curses and necromancy.
Yeah.
And Jewish scholarship admits that Adam was created as a golem spell.
Mhm.
How do you explain to Christians
So-
what magic is when they say they don't believe in it, but they believe in all of these magical things?
The difference is the source. So if it is a divine source, it is distinct from magic. This would be a kind of magic that is aside from a divine source, which is what makes it bad magic. So
Oh well, see, I used to say that the only difference between what a god does and what magic is when a god does magic, it's called a miracle.
Basically.
sure, yeah,
Yeah,
that
right,
that is yes. But like also if you're talking about like curses and blessings, for example, that is something that you and I would call magic, but because the definition of magic is it's pretty vague, honestly, depending on if you want to qualify as source or not, then it could easily be interpreted as, well, those are just divine acts, those are just divine capabilities, there's nothing that is magical about it. And
It's supernatural. It's
It is.
magical.
it is super. I agree with you, but I am letting you know how it is differentiated within
Yes.
theology.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
as you pointed out, Lawrence, in those days, there was a very different idea of magic, and natural forces were not well understood, but they were personified. So, fucking magnets would count as a form of magic.
How do they
because-
work?
Fucking magnets. How do they work? Exactly. That would totally be a form of natural magic. In a society that had no, scientific studies. and were primarily just focused on survival and, then building up their own miniature version of empire. So, that's unfortunately, though, unless someone can be very clear about what is meant by a sorceress in this context, it's still going to be super hypocritical because half of the law is blood magic. We'll get there in Leviticus.
Yeah, I look forward to learning more about witches and the witch hunts next semester when I take a course on it.
Awesome.
It's always a fun time.
That seem to develop like a
Yeah.
difference between like natural remedies and like almost like the like witchy magic as opposed to like learned sorcery. It seemed to be like less bad or something like that.